Hey there, and welcome to the L. Pritchard Code Hour. This is the show where I live code up an Android and an iOS application in real time, and I do this every Tuesday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is UTC -4. So ideally everyone joins live and you get to heckle me as I'm coding. That's the idea, and it should be a lot of fun. Also post the episodes on the my YouTube channel, and if you want to check that out afterwards, that's youtube.com/C/Lee-Richardson200. And if I get enough subscribers, I can change the channel name. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps out enormously. Would greatly appreciate it. Now, tonight's show is going to be very exciting. I'm especially excited about this because up until now, in the first 3 episodes, this is the 4th one now, we have built out a user interface in Android and in iOS. And those user interfaces haven't had any implementation. They haven't done anything really. I've been using Xamarin, and Xamarin is a technology which allows us to write everything in C#, but it does much more than that. If we had nothing else other than what we've done up until tonight, we would have an iOS application which we built from scratch and an Android application which we built from scratch, and we would still have 2 applications that we were building. But tonight, we're going to write code which is going to be able to be shared out to both of our user interfaces. And that is one of the huge benefits of cross-platform mobile development, and it's one of the huge benefits of Xamarin. So hopefully in a future episode we'll be able to get into Xamarin Forms, and Xamarin Forms is an abstraction over the user interfaces that I've written up so far, so that you only have to write one user interface and it gets rendered natively into iOS and Android. And what's really neat about it is the controls still look native and you still get native performance, but you're working at a higher level of abstraction. But before getting to that, I still think it's worth understanding the fundamentals and understanding what the base Xamarin offerings are. And so that's why we're at where we are right now. So before I get too much further, I guess I should, well, let's just take a look at what we have so far. This is the application that we've built out over the last 3 episodes. We have 3 main projects, well, 4 if you include Universal Windows Platform, if you want to target Windows, and we may get into that in a future episode. But the iOS and the Android user interfaces are the UIs so far, and we have not touched this 3rd project here, which is the Portable Class Library, PCL. And that is a type of code that ends up being compiled down to native on Android and iOS, and so it's the place where we can share code. So in order to do that, we probably want to implement a class that's not my class, something that's a little bit more along the lines of 225. That seemed like a good zoom level. We probably want to implement something along the lines of a calculator service, because as you may recall, up until now we've built something that looks a little bit like this application that's just crashed. Windows, man. Okay, here we go. We've built out an application that looks a little bit like this. We've got some numbers and we've got some operations, and we want to implement that out. And so what we need is a place where we've organized all of that, those multiplication and numeric operations. And that should probably be in a service. A service would be a typical place to do it, and that service might be called the calculator service. Or better yet, we could use the MVVM pattern. That's the Model View ViewModel. We don't actually have any models really in this. We don't have any customers, products, or sales that we need to worry about. Really, all we have is a potential for a view model. And a view model is going to generally provide a one-to-one with all of the things which are on a view. So we would have a single field called the display, perhaps. And then we might also have, if we had other display elements, or if we turned the visibility of certain things on and off, we would have the, let's say we needed to turn off the visibility of the sense indicator, right? So 5.22. Maybe if this were a separate control, that would have a separate property in the view model called isSenseIndicatorVisible. Right now we've only got one, so let's keep it simple. and we're going to code up a class, and we're going to call this the let's put this in a new property here called add new folder view models, and we're going to add a new class, and we'll call this the calculator view model. And let's delete my class. We don't need that anymore. There we go. Doing good so far. Now, this class, we could make this static. We could make all the properties static, but it's a worse practice, right? Because you can't unit test it very well. You can't mock things out, and you can't override things if you need to. You just end up getting in a kind of a stuck world very quickly if you're doing everything static. So we're going to do a public. We're going to do a class, and we need a property on it here called, and I'm going to get into how to push data down to the client in just a second, but for now let's just call this the display. And we'll have a property like that. And maybe for now let's keep this real simple. Let's have a public void. We want something which is going to be like pressing the equals button. So eventually, this is not really the best way to do this, because when we get into Xamarin Forms or other ways of implementing our user interface, we're going to want to be able to not call into the method, but bind directly using data binding, and we'll get into that later. We're going to want to bind directly into this. So eventually the better pattern here is to use a command, but for now we'll keep this part simple, and we're going to have to worry about how to update the UI. We're going to just push off both of those concerns just real quickly. For now, when we press equals, let's set the display equal to, I don't know, how about 0 to 0, 0 for now. And I just, once you're in PCL mode, I just can't help writing unit tests. Life is so much better. So I want to implement out a unit test, and we're going to call this a check-in if we can get the unit test to pass. So now is the time to do an add new project, and I'm going to make this this is such an intimidating dialog. I really just want not universal, iOS. I don't really want any of these things. I just want, no, I want a library. Class library. There it is down at the bottom. Class library, probably .NET .NET framework. Yeah, that. I don't know. I guess if we get it wrong, we can fix it, right? Let's call this our mobile calc.test. Looks good so far, and we are going to need to use either NUnit or MSTest or XUnit or a variety of other things. But to keep things kind of standard, at least, let's start with NUnit. NUnit is an open source unit testing framework based on JUnit, which was originally for Java, and we only have got some improvements over the Java one. So we're going to manage NuGet packages, and I'm going to add in, I'm going to browse, and I bet you it just pops up. Oh, look at that. I didn't even have to type anything. Second thing, yes, we want that. Get me some NUnit. Awesome. All right, and this should be called, we should probably try to mirror the code that that is under test. So we probably should have a view models, Moodles, view models. There we go. Don't need to delete that class 1, and we're going to put into the view models, add a new class, and we'll call this the calculator view model test. Seems reasonable, all right? Okay, and So that's going to be public, and I think we want this to be a test fixture. Is that right? Test fixture. Yep, that's right. And we have a test and public void do it, and our do it should assert.art r equals 0, 0. Now, I have a wonderful plugin here. This plugin is called NCrunch. NCrunch is an automatic test runner. It runs our unit tests continuously as we type, and there's a built-in feature in Visual Studio Enterprise, if you have a spare $5,000 laying around, which will allow you to do the same thing, but it actually doesn't work with NUnit, as far as I know. At least it didn't used to, and NCrunch does, and NCrunch is just really fast. It does cost money, so I should warn you, but if you find a good tool, it's worth spending some money. So we're going to enable NCrunch, and yeah, and only the impacted, yeah, and let them, yeah, and go. And if this works correctly, it's going to run these tests. There's a little indicator down here in the bottom right. You see NCrunch engine is idle, and it should be running our tests as we speak. If that doesn't work, we could also try running them in ReSharper, which I happen to have open, just to keep things moving along quickly. Let's try and run it here in a ReSharper. So ReSharper has a test runner built in, which is real handy, and we can see, okay, there we go. ReSharper just said those tests are green. That's good. And more importantly, for speed purposes, there we go. This turned green. You can see this turned green right over here, so we know that these tests are good. If we turn this to a 1, and without even saving, it's running a little slowly tonight. There we go. It turned red, and off screen over here, I have a little thing which is telling us what's going on. And let's dock this over here. Actually, let's dock this over here. There we go. And if we need it, we can see it there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we have a failing test. That's good. What's better than that is if we have something which actually tests our calculator view model. And so we're going to try testing this press equals method, and so I'm going to give this test actually a good name. And I'm a big fan of behavior-driven development, where there's kind of descriptive text for all of your unit tests that use a sort of a given when then syntax. So I like to do given, I don't know, what's the pretext, given, I don't know, in this case, what's the state of the calculator before we run the test? Probably given, I don't know, startup. When, and the when is when we press equals. So when we press equals, then display is 0 dot, no, let's just say that for now. And now we need to instantiate. Quick quiz, is this going to work? If I instantiate a new view model, it is not going to work, and the reason it's not going to work is because we have not added a reference into the, wow, I just moved everything over. Wait, I want that over there, please. Okay, unit test project, we need to add a reference to our calc. So we're going to add a reference to mobile calc, and that should be enough to get this to be able to import. Great, we've got a nice import statement up there. I'm going to remove unused usings, and now using reverse coding, as you've probably seen me do a lot, I have newed up what I want, and then I extract that into a variable using Control R V to extract into a variable, and now I have a calculator view model, and of course I am trying to test the press equals, and after having pressed equals, I am asserting that the calculator view model dot display is equal to 0.00. Ba-ding! All right, that was nice and fast. I always like it when you get nice, fast feedback, and that's one of the reasons I'm a huge benefit of unit testing, because yes, it makes your code better, and yes, it reduces regression bugs, and yes, generally code which is well tested, is well architected. All those things are true, but when you're doing mobile development, that delay from when you write code to the time you see results is so important to me to optimize. And I've heard that called the developer inner loop. Actually, maybe that's a new term for me anyway, but that developer inner loop is really important, and one of the ways that I can speed that up the absolute fastest is to write unit tests and get those unit tests turning green as quickly as possible, and that is just a wonderful way to develop. So I would encourage unit testing, if for no other reason, just to speed up your development cycles. Okay, so I've made my case. Believe me or not, doesn't matter. That's what I'm going to be doing. So we have a 0.00, and maybe what we kind of start out thinking about doing is if we do it like a public void press number, and maybe we pass in a number like int number like this, then we want something to happen. Okay, let's start thinking about this a little bit. So if we do a given startup when press 1, then the display is 1, right? It seems reasonable. Okay, so if we press number and we pass in a 1, then we expect the results to be equal to, I don't know, right now let's do 1. And then here's another one. Imagine that we had a, well, let's start with this. This would be good enough for now. Okay, so ignore, it didn't work because we have a bad name on there. Ignore, all right, or that. I cheated. So I guess in order to make that unit test pass, where if we press the number 1, we want to see the number 1, we could just make that pass in the cheapest possible way by saying display is equal to number.toString, which is totally not going to work, but it will get us started, right? That turned green at least. But here's an interesting one. Imagine given 1 on display, when we press 1 again, then display is 11, right? So if we press 1 twice, we expect to see the number 11. And now things are going to get a little more complicated because we need to start keeping track of state internally. We need to keep track of what the state of the calculator is at. So that's getting a little bit more fun here. We're going to do int, and then we're going to say, what is this like? This is like the power that you're at, I guess. We call it the, I don't know, it's the, let's just call it power for now. Maybe current power, current digit. How about current digit? That's good, right? Current digit, okay. By the way, when I use coding conventions here, I'm just using what ReSharper gives me out of the box. I once upon a time had strong feelings about all this stuff, and just as coding continues and you start on a new team and you start another, every team you start on, everyone's got their own ideas of the way things should be, and it's just so much easier if you can just say, let's just take the static analysis tools that ReSharper uses out of the box, and it's going to annoy everybody to some extent, but it's at least going to annoy everybody evenly, and it's going to be a set of standards which a lot of people use in the C# community. So when you see me using coding standards like the underscore here, that is just the ReSharper out of the box settings, and therefore I consider it to be pretty idiomatic. All right, but that's an aside. Let's do this. I guess the current digit, what does it start at? It starts at 0, right? I guess. Okay. So so we want to say current digit plus plus. Okay, that's a thing which happens. But I think we want this display to be equal to, well, we don't just have a current digit, we also have a current display as a number, don't we? So I guess this would be current number. Yeah, okay, current number, sure. And then maybe every time we're update, well, let's just say every time we update the display here, we're saying display is equal to the current number.toString. And that's kind of handy because now we can just update this current number, and every time we just call this extract method to update display. Okay, so update display, just go update yourself to whatever the current number is now. More importantly, we need to get that current number. Current number is equal to, and I guess we probably want this to be, someone chime in here. Is anyone watching this live? Let's go. Anyone? All right, we've got one person watching. So chime in if you got anything for me here. All right, we got the current number is going to be equal to the old current number plus the new number times the current digit to the 10. Something like that. How close are we? Does it compile? Does it compile? This is actually running a lot slower than I would expect it to. Maybe it's actually not compiling. Let's try compiling it. One of the really nice things about using NUnit is you don't actually have to wait for this stuff to compile usually, when you're using NCrunch. So you're just coding. You don't worry about compilation. And that is a wonderful, wonderful, fast kind of mode of development to get into. So I think the only reason that this didn't work for me is because I have a compiler error somewhere. And I think NCrunch is complaining about that. Now, NCrunch will also pause while you're in the middle of compiling. So if I just started compiling, I actually slowed the whole NCrunch compiler down because it takes a lower priority on the CPU thread than the compiler does, which is kind of what you would want, right? Oh, here we go. Okay, so we've got something here. Oh, expected 1 but was 1, expected 1 but was 10. All right, so we're expected 1. So when we came in here, oh, this is another really nice feature. You can just right-click on any of these guys and say debug covering tests in new test runner process. Oh, wait. Okay, so we're going to step in here, step in, and what we're trying to do is to say current number, which is 0, is equal to number, which is 1. We passed in times current digit, which is 0. Actually, wouldn't it be nice if current digit was 1? That would make life a little bit easier. So we say current digit plus 1, I think. That's going to help. So now we're going to say 1 to the 10th. You made any progress at all? Someone chime in. Tell me my codes are terrible. Expected 1 but was 10. Oh, and what was this one wrong? Expected 11 but was 1. Oh man, we've got some serious problems here. Alright, hang on. You know what, maybe we just temporarily do this. Let's just say, well, okay, hang on. Let's think through it. Current number is equal to number. That's going to get us passing for the first test. Yes. And now to get passing for the second test, we're coming here with a 1. And so we need to take the old number and multiply it times 10. So we can say number equals, current number is equal to current number times 10, and now we can just say current number is equal to current number plus number. That's going to work. All my fancy math. Something's very wrong with this. Let's debug, because I'm positive this code's right. I'm positive this is right. It's got to be. Right, because you go in here with the 1 the second time, and what? Oh, it just started passing. I swear NCrunch is really good. I think because I'm doing this live streaming and it's taking all my pixels and sending them across the internet, that's where the problem is. I've got actually a pretty good encoder, but it really does take a lot of CPU cycles and makes things look a lot slower than they actually are. Okay, great. So we've got this great logic here, which we spent all this time working on, and now we want to be able to share it over to iOS and Android. I guess we ought to probably implement one more thing, which is press clear. And to do that, we're going to want to say current number equals 0, and we'll just update the display. Okay, that looks good. And we're going to do the same thing for press equals. Let's be lazy, and we're going to do that's going to break a unit test. But let's write one more unit test for press clear. So let's do that here. Given 1 on display when press clear, then display is 0, right? And we've got a lot of bugs in here. This is press clear, and this is going to need to be 0. Okay. And when we do this one needs to be 0. That was one of our things that we just broke. And that's good enough, right? We don't need to worry about 0.00 yet. Let's just try and get a little bit of logic in here that we're sharing. And one more thing, we've got a bug in here, and that bug is that given 1 on display, when we press clear, then press 1, then display is 1, and this is going to fail. So if we have a 1, and then we press clear, and then we press 1 again, we would expect to see 1 on the display. Anyone? What is this going to do? 11, right? Let's see this fail. That should have failed. That should have failed. Run this in a new task runner process. No. Okay, I guess there's no bug there. Wait, okay. If we press 1, now we expect to see 11. That passed too? Okay, here's the bug that I thought was going to be in there, and that was that the current digit, we keep plussing it here, but we never, because we're not actually using it anymore. We found a tidier way to do that, didn't we? Ah, yes, okay. Current digit, we didn't need that. ReSharper says, make this set private. Yeah, that's fair. And it says, no one's using current number, make it private. Yep, that's true. And get rid of all these unused usings. Yep, that's true. Okay, we got to go implement this. We're halfway done with this episode. Got to get to actually updating the UI, and I think we've made enough. This is going to be pretty cool. Oops. This is going to be pretty cool. Let's just make sure this. Okay, given 1 on display, when we press clear, and then we press 1, and the display is 0. Beautiful. Okay, now, what should we do first, Android or iOS? Let's do Android because we did iOS last episode. I would ideally like to get both of them done, so we're going to say set as start project, but before we even get into that, we need to hook this up. And so we have in here I think we did it as a main activity. Got to fix that, but maybe now's not the right time. Actually, while we're here, let's just let's just commit this code. We're going to call this unit tests, and a blank, and a simple implementation of a view model, calculator view model, something like that. And let's just see what we added to make sure that it all looks good. Here we added a new project. Yes, this new project added a new class. Yes, that's correct. My class, we deleted that. And we introduced a new CS project. I don't need to care about that. And it had a config file, and it had an assembly info, and I don't care about any of that. And there's my tests. And yes, those tests look good. And here is a view model with a little bit of logic in it, and yes, that all looks good. Let's stage it. And let's commit it, and I'm going to push it immediately for those people who are watching live, for anyone who wants to be able to see this in a little bit slower time, and double check that I didn't make any mistakes, so you can hassle me. All right, now next thing, for the next trick, we need to get into this main activity, and we need a new instance of that view model. Now, you might be inclined to just new it up, and that would be okay, but when you're in mobile world, it's an awful lot easier. It's so much better once you implement a inversion of control pattern, and better yet, dependency injection. And I'd go back and forth about how I feel about dependency injection, but overall, especially on mobile, dependency injection just makes life so much easier, because so often what you're doing is you've got a service which is like you need to get into the GPS. Okay, the GPS services are only provided by the platform specific. So you've got your PCL and you've got your mobile code here, and you're trying in your PCL code to call into your iOS or Android code to get the current GPS location or whatever. You can't do that. The best that you can do is if you have an interface implemented up here that says iGeolocator service or whatever, and you implement it down here, and now you say, get me the iGeolocator service. And how do you get that when you're in PCL world? How can you instantiate the iOS version of that? You can't. You need dependency injection. And so that's why all of the frameworks that you use for Xamarin provide this out of the box. So, highly recommend that you use a framework to begin with, right? This sample project is just trying to show you the getting started, the raw, how you would do it, but maybe not in an ideal world. Normally you would use Xamarin Forms, maybe you would use MVVM Cross, or Simple MVVM, or maybe you just use Ninject directly and do your own DI that way. I'm going to be super lazy because the goal here is to go back in with Xamarin Forms and re-implement this all with Xamarin Forms, and it has its own dependency injection service, which works pretty well. So I'm going to be I don't know. Maybe for this time we'll just go ahead and instantiate one and just understand this is really not a good idea. So new calculator view model. There we go. Yep, that's good. Calculator view model. Get me one of those. Just because I think it's important to see some code as quickly as possible. And we'll call this private calculator view model, and we'll call it just view model equals, and that's it's not great. We'll go back and fix it. Okay, so we've already implemented when somebody clicks the equals button, but we need to do better than that. We need to do the numbers, right? So I think what we want to do here is what did we call it? Button one? No? Okay. Wait. Where did equals come from? Man, find a view by ID. Oh yeah, I forgot. We were using using XML files. Okay, on the Android side of things, sorry, it's been a little while, we're using XML files, and so in our XML file we have these controls, and I'm going to have to pop that XML file open, and that is in resources, layout, main.xml, and hopefully this won't take 5 hours to open because it's already open. Oh, perfect. So we should have, down towards the bottom here, a 0. So we just called it 0, 1. Let's just do button 1 for now. Okay, there we go, button 1. So we're going to go back here, we say button 1. We're going to, oops, we're going to extract that into a field, and we'll call it button 1. And maybe that's just good enough for now. We'll do button 1 dot click plus equals something like this. I don't know. Button number button on click, number button NUMB number button on click. There we go. Okay, awesome. Now we need to always make sure you unsubscribe from your events. Memory management, very important in the mobile world. You've only got so many bits and bytes of memory, and you gotta be careful with them all. And unsubscribing from memory is very important. And I talked about that on a previous episode, probably every single previous episode, all of them. Now, on our numbered button click, I think we can probably just do sender, and we can cast the sender to a button to get our button, and maybe we can do button.text. I think it'll be called getText. Oh, no, just text. Okay, so now we've got button text, I guess, and we kind of want to just convert that to a number, right? So we do int.parse our button text, and now we got number pressed, and now go to the number pressed dot. No, wait, now. Okay, this is where things get good. Okay, we can go into our view model and we can pass in the number that was just pressed into the view model, and then we get to update the display. And there's a better way to do this, but let's just do it the quick and dirty way for now, and that is we're going to go into the view model dot view model. No, view model. Okay. Oh, I named it like a field, because it is a field. All right, view model dot press number pressed, that, and we're just gonna, let's just be lazy about this. Again, we're gonna do what did we call it? Display? Did we even pull out the display? I don't think we did. There should be a display. If we go back over to the XML file, we're gonna zip on up to the top. We just called it display. It's the text view up here. And so we ought to be able to do find view by ID, and we're trying to find a text view, and it's going to be resource.id.display, and again, that resource was that code generation thing. So if we made any changes over here in the XML file, the code generation would fire, and we would be matched over to this thing. Okay, so now we're going to, extract that into a field, and we'll call this the display. And now when we press a number, we can say display dot text equals, and display dot text is equal to the view model dot display. And well, okay, this is good enough. Let's do this. Let's run this thing. So we're going to run this on my Genymotion emulator, and that's going to compile all of the codes and make them into Mobile Magic. Let's see, the codes go into Mobile Magic. All right. So this is good enough for now, but what we really want is that when we update the when we update the view model's display, we shouldn't have to manually update the display at the end of the onClick method. The onClick method, ideally, it would be nice if eventually we could just get to the point where it's just data binding directly into the view model, and there's no code at all behind here. And this is one of the goals of MVVM, this design pattern, is that you don't want any code at all in the display. You want all of your code to be in a portable class library type of world where it doesn't know anything about the person who's consuming its data. It's a much cleaner separation of concerns, and it's a really clean, nice pattern. Oh, that's my iPhone. Oh, okay, here we go. Moment of truth. One. Crazy! All right, fantastic. I can't believe that worked. And and if we hit equals, no, we didn't code that up yet. Okay, that was exciting. Tell me that wasn't exciting. Now we need to get. We could do a couple more. Let's do a couple more in the interests of seeing a functioning iOS Android app. It would be really nice if we could see. Well, I don't know. Let's do 2, 3, 0. Let's just do the first row. How about that? Do the 0 button. Did I call it 0? What? Who's naming these? Who is naming these things? This is ridiculous. Dot. I'll just call it 0. 0, 1, 2, 3. Good enough for government work. Don't tell the government I said that. Button 0, button 1, button 2, button 3, and we're going to extract that out, and we're going to extract that out, and you'll have to bear with me for just a little bit of boring stuff. I'll try and go through this as quickly as possible, and something like that. We'll just do those guys, and now we need to hook up the events. So 2, 3, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, and we want to follow that up over here, and these guys are all unsubscribes. We could probably find a tidier way to do this, but yeah, it's fine. It's fine for now. And if I'm going to Control F5 because I'm feeling really good about this. And then we're going to compile this for iOS. Believe it or not, there is a spider crawling right near my mouse, and this is going to end poorly for the spider, except, now he's on my headphones. I don't want to hit my headphones. Wait a minute. Oh, stupid spider. Alright, sorry. Sorry, I know you all tuned in just so you could hear the antics about spiders. 1, 2, 0, 3, 2, wow, it's beginning to look like a calculator. So cool. Alright. We should, I don't know, that's a commit, right? This is implemented Android button 0, 2, 3. Yeah, that all looks good. Commit, push. I don't need to wait for that. Okay, and back. We're going to do iOS too, because things are much more exciting when you can do iOS and Android in a single. Oh yeah, I remember how I did this now. How did we do 0? How did I do 0? I'll take some ownership of this. I probably named it something terrible. 0 button instead of button. Oh, man, that's crap. Okay, here we go. On view did appear. We want the 0 button touch up inside, and you remember they've got these weird method names in iOS. That's just part of the fun of iOS development. Create method, something like this. I'm going to call this the number button on touch up inside. I don't like that. And we're going to make sure that we unsubscribe, and I don't know how confident should we be? Should we just go crazy? underscore button one, underscore button one. Oh, look at me using nice descriptive names. Okay, and well, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go crazy. Go crazy. Let's do all of the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 8, and 9. And I can count. And I go 0 through 9. We're going to plunk those down and be good citizens and unsubscribe. And this one becomes a minus equals to unsubscribe from the event. You know, I've had the same problem. I've probably said this a gazillion times, but I've had the same problem because I'm not just a Xamarin person. I've also done a lot of work in the JavaScript-based one, Ionic. Ionic is another competitor for cross-platform mobile development, except you do all your work in HTML and CSS and HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And same problem. You have to remember to unsubscribe from events, even if you're in JavaScript world. Maybe especially if you're in JavaScript world. Another story for another time. Okay, this is a UI button, and sure, UI button, and UI button dot text. Text. Wait a minute. We didn't call it text. We called it display. Display layer. So it needs display. No, we don't want any of those things. Okay, when we add a label, when we add a button, title. That's right. Get the title for the state normal, because it's not like I have a different pressed value for that title. So now we get the extract into a variable, that into a title. And now we do the same little bit of logic, and man, I don't know if that tweaks you, but that tweaks me. Like, we just wrote the same code twice, and every time I do that, I think, man, that's not good. We shouldn't be doing that. So okay, so we could do this. We could say int.parse. It's not a title. It's like a number and a string. .parse, and we're going to extract that into a number int, which is a terrible name, and then we would do we're going to be lazy again over in this world, which is bothering me, but you only got an hour. You can only do so much in an hour, so we need a new calculator view model. Calculator view model, yep, there we go, and I'm going to extract that into a field. Come on. Okay, private one of those called view model equals new calculator view model, and we got a view model down here now. Down in the, where's the code? Here we go. On the touch up inside event, we do view model dot press number, and that number is going to be number int, and that's good. And now we should have a display. Can we do display underscore display? What's it called? That's probably main label. I saw it there. Man, that just